Hello there and welcome back to another review. So today we're going to be having a look at a very different Shaw Brothers movie, which is far removed from the usual kung fu story and tales of revenge about masters and students than you will ever get. Yes, the usual Shaw players are here, with the likes of T. Lung, Wei, Wong Yu, but this movie plays more like First Blood. Mercenaries from Hong Kong plays more like a Rambo movie, more than your usual Lieh Lung, Chang-Chi kung fu tale. Made in 1982, Mercenaries from Hong Kong was made around the time when the Shaw audience, it was sort of waning, so to speak, and people were drifting more towards sort of TV programming at this stage, and obviously Golden Harvest were firmly establishing itself as the go-to sort of studio when it come to Hong Kong movies. So, you know, this was one of them, like I say, from 1980 onwards, Shaw Brothers, as I stated in previous reviews, Shaw Brothers was getting quite experimental, maybe a bit too late in the day. But they were trying new things. They were trying to venture out, obviously trying to compete with Golden Harvest. And their heyday was sort of all but over at this stage. They were that's why the films from sort of 1980 onwards from the Shaw Brothers catalogue, they're far removed from the usual tried and tested sort of kung fu tales of like bloodshed and, like I mentioned, you know, master and students that we'd had up to this point. But, you know, at this time, I think there's a lot of interesting films that were being made from the Shaw Brothers, and I always felt that, like I say, this was when they were at their most experimental and trying new things, and this movie here, Mercenaries from Hong Kong, is a fine example of that. Now, this film was written and directed by a very, very young and well-known filmmaker by the name of Wong Jing, who would later go on to do films such as God of Gamblers, City Hunter, as well as writing and producing many Hong Kong movies. And Wong was one of these filmmakers that always was divided with local critics. Not to say the guy hasn't made good movies, because he has, but the reception to some of his movies has been lukewarm at best over the years. But, you know, the guy, Wong Jing's impact on Hong Kong cinema, I mean, he's up there. I mean, he's one of the sort of classic Hong Kong directors, really. I mean, especially from, you know, sort of the 90s onwards, you know, where he really sort of made his mark, late 80s and the 90s. But the thing with Wong Jing, like, when he's on form, he is really on form, like, and he does amazing movies. But some of his movies, unfortunately, they're sort of average at best. Sometimes they're even below average. I won't necessarily say what movies they are. And the main thing, like, people have said in past reviews to some of these movies, and a lot of people, like, the issues they have with Wong's films is the tonal shifts. That's what a lot of people have problems with, you know, like, in terms of, mainly from critics, not from fans, mainly from people that are in sort of, like, you know, critics and what they do. You know, like, for example, it'll go from serious to comedy, then we got violence, then we got drama, and then we even have toilet humour, and all of this was always, in a lot of Wong Jing's films, sort of interchangeable. So it'll all be, like, sort of thrown in there and just basically see what sticks, you know, let's just go all in and just see what happens. But this is an early film from him in the director's chair that follows in the wake of movies like Dirty Dozen and movies like that. Now, I like this movie just because it's so great to see some of the classic Shaw players in a modern setting. I mean, if you have T. Lung and Lieh on board, you're pretty much in good hands already before you've even got going. You know, we're already off to a good start. Simon Abrahams, in the booklet that came with this movie, says this movie is overstuffed and underthought, which I guess could be true. But there's still a lot to be fun, a lot of fun to be had. Sometimes, you know, if you buy a Blu-ray or a special edition or something, and somebody like an expert or you know, whatever it may be, they've wrote some notes inside or little trivia about the movie, that's fine. I'm all for learning facts about the movie or a bit of insight into the movie, but when they state their opinion on the movie, it's sort of, a lot of the time, especially when they're sort of critiquing the movie and they're sort of giving it a bit of harsh like some really harsh criticism more than it needed, it's almost a bit, you know, you don't need to really say that. It's like, sort of, I'll make up my own mind. You know, I'm all for facts about the movie, but as I say, he mentions that it's overstuffed and it's underthought, but okay, to a degree, but there's still, don't listen to that. I still think there's a lot of fun to be had with this movie. The gunplay and action in this movie is handled, I would say, really well throughout. Have to remember, this was before John Woo had really made his mark on the heroic bloodshed genre. Even if the movie does follow the old tried and tested story of a group of badasses who have to come back together for sort of one job and one last job, you know, we've seen it all before in so many movies. You know, and the fact we have like a military sort of gunplay Shaw Brothers movie makes it worth checking out. And that's, you know, if they'd cast this with just anybody in it, it wouldn't have had the same impact, and Mercenaries from Hong Kong definitely would not have been as fun. But the fact they've got some of the veterans in here, the fact they've got so many famous faces in this movie makes it worth checking out on that novelty alone. I mean, talking about famous faces, not only that, we have Yuen Wah in this movie, Phillip Kyao's in this movie, Lee Hoi Sang's in this movie. So that alone, to me, makes it worth checking out. But let's go into Mercenaries from Hong Kong a little and see how it fares. Now, it starts with a very different opening to a Shaw Brothers movie. Like, the screen goes black with the credits, and it starts with T. Lung working out in his underpants and black vest, and he has like a cupboard full of guns, weapons and knives, as you do. So he goes into this building as like a serviceman, though when he goes into this room where the guy's drugging this girl, he has like a snazzy biker jacket on. He forces the guy to take loads of drugs, blasts one of his men with a shotgun, then jumps out onto the roof and onto this truck below. Then the very next shot, he comes out the back of it on like a motorbike. So we're in like fifth gear right away. Like, the film is cranked up right away, and then begins a chase involving crashes, knives and chains. And his name is Lieh, and like, he's like, the boss basically wants him killed, and Lieh goes into hiding at this hut, and turns out the guy from earlier sort of raped his niece and killed her. And now sort of his plan is to go to Thailand and smuggle medicines. Then he meets Miss Ho, played by Candice Yu, after she has his like friends hostage, who like sort of just disappears, I might add, and she wants him to capture Naiman in Cambodia, played by Phillip Kyaw. And Phillip Kyaw's in loads of movies, too many to mention, and he is like the devil and Thailand's top assassin. I mean, you know, go figure. Of course he's going to be Thailand's top assassin, like, who killed her father, and he is hiding out with this rogue sort of guerrilla sort of compound, sort of Snakey and Dan, who is sort of like his blood brother. And not only that, but he stole a highly confidential tape for good measure. So, you know, the stakes, they're up there. You know, it's pressure time. But so he's basically this badass who's in Thailand, and he's got this badass blood brother as well. And as I say, he's got this tape and everything, without boring you too much. So in a typical like war movie fashion, he is tasked with forming a team, which, you know, they all get like $1 million each, and Miss Ho will give them any weapons they want, as her family is like the richest in Hong Kong. We have Wai-man as our Sing and Chan Pak-chung as Brand. We learn about his character with a guy coming at his balls with some garden cutters, which is novelty in itself. Third guy is Lieh, played by Lieh, who is like a sharpshooter, and his daughter needs like a kidney transplant. We have Lung-wei as Hung Fan. Now, this is what saves the film in a big way. The cast you have are great. You know, it's a great cast. That's what sort of just saves the film in many ways. The fact you've got these guys who you've seen time and time again in so many classic Shaw Brothers movies, and the fact they're sort of banding together. You know, it's going to be sort of a gunplay like pick, a mercenaries pick, and in a modern setting and everything else. As I say, you have a great cast in this one. So Fan is a boxer, and he gets into a fight with Wong Yu involving pipes over like a parking space. Him and T. Lung go to get like Curry, who is a lockpicker, and that Wong Yu plays Curry. And he's like a small time, like, he has like a side hustle as like a magician as well. So just like the A-Team, they all bring something to the party, right? We have the ladies man, the shooter, the muscle, the lockpicker, you know, all there in sort of A-Team fashion. So if you cast your mind back to my Heroes Shed No Tears review, this film is doing what that film didn't, and that is actually introducing the characters. Now, that's why you get a lot more invested with Mercenaries from Hong Kong. Like Heroes from Shed No Tears, if you do recall that review, or if you have seen that movie, John Woo's Heroes Shed No Tears, that film, you're just put right in the middle of the action. You have no context who these characters are. And by the end of the movie, you have no even further knowledge of who these characters are. What this film does well is it introduces you to your team. You meet T. Lung, you meet Lieh, you meet Chan Wai-man, you meet Wong Yu, all these people, and you get familiar with the team. You get to learn about their personalities and sort of who they are, even if just in a brief, quick way. But you still learn sort of what their gimmick is, what they're bringing to the team, who they are, sort of roughly what their background is, what their character traits are. And obviously, not only just with that little setup, you learn a lot more about them. Well, not a hell of a lot more, but you can afford to be a tiny bit more invested as the film goes on, which I'd say helps if you were to get to know this team more. As I say, in Here I Shed No Tears, you're just thrown in. And for some reason, when our team are together, they all wear the same red jackets, though. They all wear, like, the same red jacket and white trousers when they visit Miss Ho at, like, this golf course where they all have to sort of basically sign a contract. Look out for Yun-wei as the brother of the drug dealer who wants to kill Ti-lung, though now the boss won't let him as he is working for the Ho family. Again, just bear with me, like I say in all my reviews, I'm just crashing through the plot, just what happens, and if I trip over myself, I stumble, or I get some elements of the plot wrong, please forgive me, I'm just sort of crashing through it, and just, as I say, just giving you an overview of the movie. So next, our team are all wearing the same white and blue outfits. Again, we have no idea why they all sort of... I've no idea watching this why they're all sort of coordinated. Like, should we all wear the same... You picture them like in their hotel, you know, they've got this big operation to do in Thailand, take down this like sort of kingpin. It's like, right, we're all wearing the blue jacket tomorrow, right, awesome. You know, why they've got to all be colour coordinated like in a fashion sense, I have no idea. So Brand chats up this lady who he catches peeing next to him, who turns out to be a dude, and in typical Wong Jing dialogue we get smutty lines like enjoy your sword fight. But that's what I'm saying with Wong Jing movies, you go from sort of smutty like lines like that, and then there's gunplay, and then there's sort of light-hearted comedy the next scene. Very crass humour indeed. We have a bar brawl with Yun-wei's men trying to take them out, and it's actually quite an awesome fight here that breaks out around this like shopping centre, like shopping centre type-esque looking building, and the action is super fast, and I love Ti-lung beating this guy up in an elevator as he descends, which is pretty cool. We have machetes involved, escalators, you name it, and it leads to the car park, and suddenly they all have baseball bats for some reason. And despite all its faults, this is a great example of a modern day setting Hong Kong action, right? As I say, is the film perfect? No. Do you get a great cast? Yep. Is the action good? Pretty much. So, you know, there is a lot of fun to be had here. I mean, at the time, you know, I know, like I said, the films were getting a bit more experimental. There were still kung fu movies being made. There were still, like I say, period kung fu movies being made. But Mercenaries from Hong Kong was very different to what was being like mass produced up to that point. So Yun-wei and his men get their asses kicked basically, and have to love it as he leaves. Lieh Hoi-sang collars him out of nowhere and sort of breaks his neck as well. So they're sort of like two guerrilla bases, right? Ying Dan's and his rivals, and you know, wait for it, the rival, if you want to know his name, it's Fat Pig King. Okay, so Miss Ho thinks Lieh Hoi-sang is working for Wai-man, and she starts to like Ti-lung, saying that she always wanted a man like him. Not sure if it's implied they slept together here or not. I think, if memory serves, it might be implied they did. Our team are sort of posing as medical smugglers. There is some element here to give all our characters, like I mentioned, personality and individual traits. Like, I love how Lung-wei and Wang Yu characters are constantly arguing. You know, it just fleshes them out a bit more. Rather than just them going through the motions, going along with their mission, it's nice that sort of they have two characters in this movie that do butt heads, that don't agree, they don't like each other, but they got to do this mission together. But I just love that these two are constantly bickering. So no sooner are they taking a break and they get ambushed by some soldiers, they surrender themselves to the camp and pretend they are lost with medical supplies. Wai-man, remember that's Phillip Kyo's character, doesn't trust it. Some of his men died. Fat Pig King's men attack, and Wai-man is like a man possessed, like Phillip Kyo's like slaughtering them all. Ying Dan, however, trusts I don't think he trusts Lo Lik, and he's interested in, he actually does trust Lo Lik, from memory serves, and he's sort of interested in their medical supplies. And that night, our crew make our move after earning their trust and waste no time basically in slaughtering everyone. Like, they just don't, it's not subtle at all. It's no time building or like, let's earn their trust a bit more. It's like, no, they just basically, you know, it gets to night time, you know, no time at all, slaughter everyone in the camp and the guard tower. All the while Wai-man is getting like busy with a lady. They have no idea how he can't hear all the mass gunfire that's going on outside at this point. After a one-on-one bout, Lo shoots him. Ying Dan returns. He was busy trying to take out Fat Pig King, which if you take any name from this movie, that's probably the one you will remember. Brand, meanwhile, had planted like sort of time explosives, so they're sort of surrounded at this point, right? Our crew is sort of surrounded. Brand set the timers for, you know, for 20 minutes, like 20 minutes on the explosive, so they waste no time. Like, they all make a break for it. We have smoke grenades. Then he sets it for like 20 minutes, and then I think out of nowhere, like the time quickly goes down to 3 minutes, like in the space of like 30 seconds. Not sure where sort of that 17 minutes has just gone. I mean, our crew, you know, they stand a good chance. There's only like 6 of them versus 100, so the chances, you know, they're still, hopefully, you know, luck's on their side. No big deal. Wang Lung-wei gets shot. You know, first as he's sort of protecting Curry's, who's sort of stealing a truck. We get some nice catch up on the windscreen here when it sort of runs some guards over. Wai-man blows the crap out of Ying Dan's face. The place explodes and they sort of escape via truck. So Miss Ho had randomly gone back to Hong Kong. Remember that audio tape I mentioned? It's actually Lieh Sang who wants that back, and as Naiman, you know, just starts drilling through his fingers. Kiao makes a break for it, and I swear he suddenly sort of... Phillip Kiao, if you look at the end of this movie, I swear there's elements where he does sort of have a wig on, like his hair towards the tail end of the movie does look a little bit different, because his hair just suddenly it just doesn't look right. Now, this is where, in the movie, Wong Jing does try to inject a twist. Naiman tells Lo it was like Ho who wanted her father dead. He was like a drug kingpin and he wanted to quit, but she didn't. And Naiman has like an audio tape of her asking him to kill her father. See, you know, it's not as simple as you thought. It turns out the bad guy is not really the bad guy, basically. I know I'm throwing loads of names at you if you've never seen this movie. And I've probably, as I say, stumbled over myself with the plot, but... Basically, the bad person who you thought was the villain isn't, right? A bit like if you think Iron Man 3, a bit sort of something like that going on. So it's not as simple as you thought. And Lieh Sang works for her, and he's trying to get this tape back. There's always a tape or a bit of film, or you know, usually in a Hong Kong movie, there's always a bit of evidence or something that's got a, you know, it's the MacGuffin. It's the thing that everybody's after. So basically, the twist, I mean, in terms of the twist, you know, it isn't too bad, and the film is better for it that it actually has one. So now they decide to sort of help Naiman. They sort of escape, just as T-Lung hates being fooled by drug dealers. They go to this gun room in the building. Naiman gets shot, but you don't see by who. Lieh takes a shotgun blast to his stomach, and T-Lung puts him out of his misery by blowing his brains out and vows vengeance on Miss Ho. She has really sort of stitched him up at this point. So our team get back to Hong Kong via speedboat, and Wong Yu has had enough, right? He's completely had enough. Wong Yu's checking out. T-Lung makes sure Lolei's daughter gets to Hong Kong for her treatment. She knows her dad is dead and just goes on her own. You know, you would have thought Lo Lik would have gone with her, at least to keep her company, but no, his young daughter just goes to this thing on her own. So Miss Ho is getting an award for Outstanding Woman of the Year, right? She's like this public figure, she's applauded, people love her, but she's actually sort of this drug dealer, sort of behind closed doors, and she has this sort of... other racket going on. So after getting them some weapons, Brown is found dead and they suspect Curry, right? They think Curry's the guy that done it. It turns out there's a traitor in their ranks in Wai-man, seeing as Miss Ho, like, basically she got to him, right? Quite clever how you think, what is good is at first you do think it was Curry, but the reason he split, like if you remember, like I said, when Wong Yu's checking out, he was basically, he left when they got back to find out who the traitor was. Like he just wanted to, you know, he knew something was up. He arrives sort of with a fake grenade to save T-Lung, who gets into a really brutal blade fight on a stairwell with Ah Sing, and basically ends with Lick sort of blading him in the neck. Wong Yu kills Lieh Sang with some darts, then he dies. So after a small but cool car chase, he finds Miss Ho, who has Lolei's daughter, Su Min, I think her name is, and the girl gets shot and killed, and he bazookas her car, and that is the end of Mercenaries from Hong Kong. Again, as always, really crashed through it. Forgive me if I got some elements of the plot wrong. As I say, I'm just trying to give you a brief overview of the movie. But there's loads going on in this movie, and like you've got to remember sometimes, like if you've seen Wong Jing movies like God of Gamblers, or you've seen sort of, you know, City Hunter, or, you know, anything like that, have a look at some of his earlier movies like Magic Crystal, Mercenaries from Hong Kong, and check out some of Wong Jing's earlier stuff, because it's interesting to see, especially like even John Woo's earlier stuff, you know, like Last Hurrah for Chivalry, and even though Heroes That Shed No Tears is not perfect, it's still worth checking out. But you know, with Mercenaries from Hong Kong, you've got a great cast, some actually pretty damn good action as well. Some of the humour, as you would expect, a bit lowbrow, but that is to be expected from a Wong Jing vehicle. But it's definitely one worth checking out from the Shaw Brothers catalogue, and that goes, like I say, for a modern day First Blood Rambo-esque type action movie. I think it's one definitely worth checking out. It's definitely a worthy addition as well to the Shaw Brothers Volume 2 box set. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.